Good evening. And let me tell y'all, the Sunday sit down is not going to be this lit for another roundabout. Let me bring this into y'all, and thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Taz. Can I get a round of applause? Get it going. For Royal Star! Well, thank you, my brother, for joining me here for the Sunday sit down. Because you, as I always say, the conversation is going to take us where the conversation is going to go. And before we started, you brought up what happened in Alabama.
Hold on, forgive me, because I have to begin at the beginning, right? Because it is Black August. So, peace to the ancestors, peace to the Yoruba, peace to the Igbo.
Let me give you the spotlight. Let me give you the spotlight so folks can focus, okay?
Quite all right. It is Black August. Peace to the ancestors, peace to the Yoruba, peace to the Igbo, peace to the Bakongo, peace to the Mende, peace to the Manginka, peace to the Fulani, peace to the Wolof, peace to the Chamba, peace to the Abran, peace to those who survived the 44 to 66 days of the Middle Passage. You and I are here because they were strong enough in order to overcome every obstacle that has been put in front of us over the last 404 years. The first of us 20 Nagars, Negars, came here on August 20th, 1619. You are paying attention to the voice, to the presence of one called by a divine name, Royal Star Allah, and by an honorable name, Kokai Tehuti Nosakere. I thank you for showing up, Asante Sana, and may you be blessed in order to be renewed and refreshed as we move forward, because after what just happened in Montgomery and the energy that was transferred from the economic freedom fighters in Azania, also in the ancient name of Monomotapa, but we call it right now South Africa, and Julius Malema, whom, if you have any kind of question, Trevor Noah endorses, and Winnie Mandela considers to be an honor student. Let us move forward as one people. Umoja! I can't hear you, sister.
Anyone who's been on this podcast knows that I am a stickler for giving originating names, and I love that you opened this up, giving the
names of the tribes that came over, those of us, because we're a fiber optic of people. We did not exist until the transatlantic slave trade. Those of us who call ourselves black, who are foundational, fundamental black Americans, we are a fiber optics of people, and we extend from the top of Canada all the way to the bottom of Peru. Do not allow them to limit you to the main land of 3,000 by 2,000 square miles of the United States of America. We extend to the central, to
And my
south.
thing is, before y'all go any further, Google is free. Look
Uh-oh.
up Ms. Rahani. Look up Asante Sana.
Ooh, ooh, that Kiswahili.
You're to know, my brother. You're to know.
I'm sorry, I'm Keith. We had SummerSlam yesterday, and then it did after everything that Julius Malema has been putting out with the economic freedom fighters. I am on a different plane.
Hold on.
I'm there.
Do you mind taking a moment? Do you mind taking a moment to educate the folks on what really went down yesterday? Because I know they're tired of hearing me say it. Can you take a minute to educate the folks?
From what I can ascertain, because I there is not a lot of information that's coming out because it keeps getting shut down on social media, and then we get a video on Facebook. Okay. And then the news organizations are, they're the news organizations here in the United States of America. So my friends and I in Alyeska, so I try and use the indigenous names of everything. If you were a settler and you do not understand the Athabascan or the Inupiaq and the Yupik, then you would call this Alaska, but we call it Alyeska. So from what I can, when we were in Alaska, Alyeska, my friends and I, we started our own media outlet because we recognized that there was so much misinformation being put forth by our European American friends and family on purpose, because they live in a totally different psychological reality than black, brown, indigenous persons of color. And I use BIPOC only because the young people are using that, and that's the cutting edge of the current. Where I come from, we say original people.
Same.
Okay? Or the persons of the global majority. We don't try and center white people or European Americans. So from what I can gather,
Okay.
there was an overweight brother who was a security guard. He stepped to a boat that was filled with, I don't know, some drunk Esau's children. If you don't understand, I'm using tribal language. Y'all already know. Okay. And when this drunk European American stepped to him and hit him once, he took his hat off like his name was Samada. No, what's his name? The brother Samada. What's his name? The hip hop cat.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name right
I
now.
hear you. But he threw his hat up in the air, and when he threw his hat up in the air, it was like a bat signal. And so all the other brothers and the people who were putting up their cell phones saw what was going on. And he got a mask because he was a little bit older, but he's doing his job of doing security and everything. So it took a few minutes, but the other brothers started kicking in. And when they kicked in and surrounded that boat that had them drunk European Americans who had violated someone who was just trying to make their money, they returned the favor. And they didn't stop. I mean, they did better than SummerSlam. They were gold plated. They brought out chairs. The elders kicked in. The young
Did you see how they swim across?
One brother swam across with all his clothes on.
Everything. Everything.
Correct. So it felt like that energy that's flowing in Alkebulan, and if you don't know what that is the one of the 12 indigenous names to Mama Africa, because Africa is named after a Greek cat. So Alkebulan, they came over, and it's been lovely. It's been beautiful. It's been refreshing to see Umoja. Umoja is a Kiswahili word which means oneness. It gets translated by Maulana Karinga for Kwanzaa to be unity, but it means oneness because Moja is a county word for one. And for those who do not know, the left side of my brain is Minister Malcolm X. The right side of my brain is Ross Bob Marley. I'm a pro-humanity, anti-racism educator. I'm a black historian. And so I'm going to keep dropping left and right a lot of culture, and I'm going to do a lot of books. And it's going to depend on whatever
Oh,
comes up
my
in the
brother,
moment.
they used to it over here.
Oh, they should be. All right, good.
They used to it over here. Okay, we drop books. We keep everything to its origins. You don't have to explain to them over here. Okay,
Oh, okay, 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 okay. I'm in that media. That's what's
that's what when I
up.
said that's why if you notice when I brought up Ms. Rahi, our
Yes,
numbers
sir.
went up. They know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They already know.
All
Okay.
right, doctor.
You know how we got down over here. Okay.
you know, you
We got
know.
the islands circling around us, and we got the ancestors that keep us safe.
Like mountains round Jerusalem. So is Emperor Selassie around I and I, I and I, I and I, I and I. Okay, understood.
This got to be a good night. This
Yes, I.
is got to be the goodest night we done had. Okay. Oh, we
so,
want to do this. Go
right.
ahead.
So just to let you guys know, I live in what the settlers could not hear, that the Haida and the Tega and the Kalapua called Oregon. And they couldn't hear that. So they say Oregon. And that started in 1844. It became a state in the United in 1859. And there were exclusionary laws that said that they weren't going to deal with enslavement practices or with the controversy that was going on from the compromise of 1820 among our European American friends and family, or the compromise between 1850 with our European American friends and family. So they just excluded us
You
from
know
being
what?
here.
I'm about to just give you the platform for about 10 minutes so that you can give them some history. I mean that. Do you mind? Is that
I don't,
okay? So
no, I don't have any problem with it because I can catch them up to the 5 years that
oh,
I've been here. All right.
okay.
So
I'm about to just give you the platform for 10 minutes so you can give them the history because I know you got history that I don't have because we live in different parts of the country.
understood. So when it comes down to the European Americans and their involvement here in the Pacific Northwest, there was something called the gold rush. The issue is that when the 49ers, that's the 1849ers, came into this area, they weren't able and sufficient and crafty enough and inventive enough and creative enough in order to access the gold that happened to be here. So one, two, three, or four of them would access a gold ore and attract hordes of them. And when the hordes could not access the gold, they decided to tap into the native population here and murder the indigenous. And they would get money from the state. And so the state of California and Oregon would pay out almost $1 million. Now, if it's 1851, 1852, 1853, that's a lot of money because it would be $5 a body, $10 a body. And many of the native people that live here said the only reason why they still exist is because the settlers were poor shots. So when you think of Paul Bunyan and you think of Pecos Bill, then think about all the native people who had to pay with their lives for there to be the European settlers and the manifest destiny in this particular area. Now, I moved here from Alyeska in 2018. Now, that's 2 years, or what is it? Yeah, into the reign of number 45 and his influence on our European American friends and family. Since then, it's been basically hell on earth. and there's been a tremendous amount of, how do I say this, opposition to any kind of kujichagulia or self-determination from original people since I came here. I started in Southern Oregon, where Ashland is. Ashland is 91% white, with 22,000 people that live there. Southern Oregon is on the border of uh, Karuk land. You can look that up. Wairika, which is in Northern California, is very near the Karuk reservation. I have visited uh, Wairika, and there was a brother named Hody, Hoadley, who came over right after the Second American Civil War, which was between 1861 and 1865, because I call the American Revolution the first American Civil War, because if you were black, brown, indigenous persons of color, it just looked like white people fighting white people. It didn't look like there was anything going on different between those two conflicts. So there were a number of us who ran from the settlers and connected with our cousins, the indigenous, in order to survive. Once I got here, because of my nature and the fact that I've been a community organizer since I went to the Million Man March on October 16th, 1995, I did exactly what is in my nature and began organizing. So in 2020, at the very beginning, after I did the first Kwanzaa celebration in Ashland, as well as the first Juneteenth celebration the year before in Ashland, I started something called the Ashland BIPOC Sanctuary. Now, I was, because of my activity, brought to the beloved music festival in August 2019 by 4 multi-ethnic femmes who said that they wanted to do a BIPOC sanctuary there. It had failed with Afrofusion in 2019, who had the original idea, but because it was uh, orchestrated and organized by black folks, they did not have the strength to be able to push back against the European Americans. Whereas Beloved, because it was organized by European Americans and all these hippies, were able to put up a sanctuary and be able to fight the other European Americans. So we successfully did that at the festival. I had a wonderful time. I came home, recognized that it was a historic event, wrote it up, made a book out of it called When and Where We Feel Safe, and then went to work implementing that in Ashland. Because if you, as I'm about to say, everybody that's black, brown, indigenous, person of color are under attack in Southern Oregon. There are 4 chapters of the KKK operational, and even though one of the 13 grandmothers, indigenous grandmothers, Grandma Aggie, lived in Grants Pass, Grants Pass is where there is a clavern, an active clavern. So I started working on organizing the Ashland BIPOC Sanctuary. It was good because by November 23rd, 2020, after the Almeida fire, you can Google that, it was huge. And it burned Ashland, Phoenix, Talon, Medford, and then it burned out in Medford. But it took out all the trailer courts, and it took out half of those 4 um, cities and got on the news. There was a young man, biracial, who had lived in the area for the 3 years. So is from age 17. He graduated from Ashland High. He was at the hotel in the middle of Ashland, and this guy named Robert Paul Keegan heard him inside of a car, and he was in the car because of his anxiety. And it was early in the morning, and November 23rd, even though it's Southern Oregon, is cold. So because of his anxiety, he was in the car and he was playing his music, and he had turned the car on in order to stay warm. And Robert Paul Keegan came down and supposedly heard music, and he went over to this young man, Aiden Ellison, knocked on the window and asked Aiden Ellison to turn down the music that was coming out of his cell phone. And then when Aiden Ellison acted like a human being and told him no, this man, Robert Paul Keegan, who was employed by the school district in Ashland, went to the clerk in the hotel and said, this young man is playing music too loud. And the clerk was like, I can't hear nothing. So Robert Paul Keegan went upstairs to his hotel room where he had two of his children sleeping, changed out of the clothes that he was in because it was like 4:30 in the morning, and he was in his pajamas when he talked to Aiden Ellison the first time. He changed into his regular clothes, grabbed his gun, went down, and he shot Aiden Ellison. Now, because Ashland views itself as a progressive blue dot in the middle of all this KKK activity, they were surprised that this white man who was a part of the school district murdered a black man. But if you listen to Aiden Ellison, he said that if you wanted to be successful in Ashland, Oregon, you just needed to be in possession of two things: a big smile and white skin. When that quote came out, all the white people were like, this can't be true. We don't like the idea of this, but it is true. And so um, the mayor, Julie Akins, got in contact with me after this, and they were like, could you help me create something called the surge? And I was like, what does surge stand for? SERG. And they were like, social engagement, racial justice. I was like, oh, you like stand up for racial justice, which is in Eugene. They were like, yeah. So I helped them organize it. We got it passed by the city council. But while we were getting it passed, we're dealing with the George Floyd incident. So we got it passed the same month that George Floyd's trial was happening. So with the national shield, even those who were in opposition to Surge, the white nationalists that are in Southern Oregon and on the city council of Ashland, they backed Julie Akins. Now, while this was happening, Nataki Garrett, who was one of three black women who is in charge of a playhouse, and in Ashland there is the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. Oh my goodness. This is an absolutely gorgeous black woman who's brilliant, who was putting on plays, and they were orchestrated around black and indigenous themes. The white people didn't like it. They started doing editorials against our sister. So our sister had to get, in September of last year, 2022, bodyguards to protect themselves from death threats. So now I've got the sanctuary, and we are trying to do everything within our power to protect our sister. So we start doing tackling racism in Ashland town halls, because when we tried to get the mayor, who just, you know, got all kind of free labor off for me to organize her city to do surge, she didn't want to stand out there and organize any town halls around stopping her community from being racist towards our sister. So we had 5 town halls that we organized ourselves, but it wasn't enough. And after 9 months of living under death threat, and her child living under death threat with her, in May of this year, she resigned. So I come through and had a book tour, and had dropped a new book to try and help these European Americans learn what was going on. And that failed because even with all the advertising I did, as well as going on the radio, 5 people came out to the event. So we were like, you know what? We're going to fall back, start our own thing, and focus in on original people.
But
I
can you
thank you.
tell the brothers and sisters out there the name of the book?
That I did. Okay, so I've got several books. So when and where we feel safe would be what I want them to connect to, which was the original book for the Beloved Music Festival that gives you the framework of how and why we built the sanctuary in the first place. We have
So it's
now,
when and where
we
I
feel safe.
okay.
When and where we feel safe. You cannot get my books because Dr. Joy DeGruy, who did post-traumatic slave syndrome, was centered in Portland. They came up because they self-published that book in 2005. They came up to Alyeska, Anchorage, and visited us in 2009, right after Barack Obama got elected. I had dinner with them, so I learned a whole lot. So I learned that we don't want to give our money to Barnes and Noble. We don't want to give our money to Amazon. It is better for us to do for self and figure out how to make things work for us. So I self-publish all my books. You have to email me. We can put the email afterwards and have them get in contact with you, Sistren. Um, and keep it going on that front. The latest book I have out is specifically for European Americans, and it's called For Your Benefit: How to Build a Racial Trauma Center. What works for us doesn't work for them. We have PTSD, they have PITS. If you don't know what PITS is, that is perpetrator induced trauma syndrome. We find that in our society if you are a staff member at death row, because you know you're putting to death a human being and it messes with your psychology. Likewise, if you're at a slaughterhouse, because you learn that the cows and the pigs and the goats know that they're in a death camp, and that starts messing with your psychology too. So our European American friends and family who have been hunting us and oppressing us for the last 600 years do not have PTSD from doing that. They have PITS, perpetrator induced trauma
They
syndrome.
don't have PTSD because we're
They're not
forced
victims.
we are forced into the slaughterhouse where they walk into the slaughterhouse. They have no problem
Teach,
with the baloney that comes from their own skin. They have no
teach,
problem with the hot dogs that come from their skin folk. They're supposed to be their kinfolk, and we know all kinfolk ain't skinfolk, and we know
teach.
all skinfolk ain't kinfolk. So I say that all the time, but I just wanted people to know, the names of their books. And for anybody who's new, you can contact me. It's asktaz77@gmail.com. Anybody who comes onto the show, I will give you all of the ways in order to get their books, get their artwork, everything. I just want y'all to know that it is available and what to ask for, because everybody is not, some folk are at the primary level, some people at the middle school level, some people are at the high school level, some people are at the collegiate level, and then there's some people who are at the doctorate level. So
Teach.
that's why I always ask when I have a guest on, so that we make sure we meet you where you are. That's not meaning that we're talking down upon you or denigrating you. You need to dismantle that. When you hear a black or brown voice saying that there are levels to your deconstruction, we are not talking down towards you. And you need to realize that throughout history, you could learn our languages. We were forced to learn your languages and translate for you. So even to this day, we have to be the in between for you to be able to deconstruct. That's not me being uppity, that's me being factual and actual.
Teach.
And
Absolutely.
I'm always going to do that in any platform that I have. I'm going to be actual. I'm going to be factual. I'm going to be historically correct. Just like I showed y'all over on TikTok, somebody blessed me with a new book, a book that I did not have in my library. I did a quick little video, brother. Okay, and they caught that I didn't have a certain book in my library. They was on it. They sent it to me. And there were some people, some alabaster Annabelle, some yeast yeti yardigans that were like, well, it's taking you forever to get through this book. Let me explain something to you. I am a black woman. I don't just read a book, I research a book. So, yes, after 3 days, I'm on page 13 and I got 20 pages of research.
Teach.
that
Teach.
came through it, because yes, they will tell us about the African meeting house in Nantucket. But are they going to tell us who bought it? Are they going to tell us how it was treated? Are they going to tell us about the black female millionaire who was funding John Brown?
Uh-oh.
Are we going to talk about how the Quakers were not unilaterally abolitionists?
Uh-oh.
See, they'll tell you that in a snippet in the book. So when I say y'all research that book, and when you see my anti-racism journey, know that I'm bringing you all of the facts. I am not going to gloss over it.
And that's right and exact, because it takes a minute in order to wrap your head around the level of devilishment that we've had to survive. And the fact that it was conscious, that they made conscious decision with every legal problem that came up or every conflict that came up. So yes, and there's thousands upon thousands of pages. What was it? Uh, Thomas Dixon, when he did The Klansman and turned it from a play into a movie, it became Birth of a Nation in 1915. It was huge. Carter G. Woodson started the Journal of Negro History in response to this blockbuster movie, because most European Americans learn their history from Hollywood. They don't learn their history from a book.
And this is why so many European Americans believe that life imitates art instead of art imitating life. Because the cross burning, y'all do realize that y'all got that from the OG version of that movie.
Correct. It didn't even exist. The KKK didn't even do it until that movie. Just like it's amazing to me what they make into movies. So like right now, they got that Barbie thing going on, right? Which is white men versus white women. It got nothing to do with us. I don't know why you didn't go into it. Okay,
And,
got
but-
nothing to do with us.
and just to put a little caveat into that, for those of y'all fighting to save your lives against the patriarchy, y'all do realize in our motherland, the continent, not the country, the continent of Africa, we worked under a matriarchy.
Oh,
Ain't got
ooh,
nothing to do with us.
tell the truth. Exactly. If I remember correctly, Isis is the hero of the story when we come down to the origin of Kemet. In fact, if you are King Tut, you sat on Isis's lap and that was your throne.
Yeah, when I actually let my natural eye color come out, that is gray. And I love to do it around what people call the spooky season, when I do the silver gray hair, and people are like, "Oh, Storm, baby." I'm not Storm, I'm Isis.
Oh, in fact, if there was this guy, this Macedonian, he was called Alexander the Great. When he got through getting through, the upper part of Kemet, and I keep using the indigenous name of Egypt, Kemet. When he got to Ethiopia, he met this person by the name of Candace who had one eye on her war horse. If you want to know where I get this from, that's the Keeper Nagast, or the glory of the kings and queens. And when he saw that black woman on the war horse surrounded by her army, he was like, I don't want to get my ass beat here and dare see my reputation. So let me back up. And he went over to India.
And hold on, I know I'm about to break some brains tonight. I
Uh-oh.
know a bunch of people think that Cleopatra offed herself because she was so in love and they were about to come. No, Cleopatra stepped across some boundaries Cleopatra shouldn't have stepped across. Cleopatra started trying to collect things that she should not have collected. Cleopatra did not off herself because of some love struck thing, or she was worried about the patriarchy coming to get her. No, 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 no. She was worried because on the continent of Africa, the most feared individuals are the women, the most graphic, the most high end of those that are warriors are the women. See, when they brought us over here, and this is why, and this is why I keep telling y'all, DeSantis was a history teacher and gave out a history book. I'm using this very loosely.
Yeah, you are.
Now, yeah, you already know. We done talked about that. I know we don't.
Oh my goodness, dude, that
But
cat.
we don't have enough time to really break this down. We would have to do like a 67 part series to break this. And you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, we came with skills.
More than one, dude.
And
They
here's
had.
the thing. If y'all don't want to believe me on anything else, you want to know how tobacco became so flourishing within the United States? Look up the black woman named Indigo. If Indigo would not have been benevolent, and when y'all say it's just hair, that crop came across in her hair, and the knowledge on how to cultivate it on new sand came from her. Am I
Tell the
lying?
truth.
If I'm
No, you are
lying,
not. No, you are not. No, you're not. And if you give, again, like you said, if you give us enough time and allow us to come forward with our libraries, we will show improve this beyond a shadow of doubt. That everything
if y'all really
they
want to
picked,
know,
they
look
picked
into the
specific.
look into the Athenaeum of San Francisco, the very first collective black library and scientific hub of the West. The Athenaeum, which was Miss Perlman, one of the first black millionaires, well before Madam C.J. Walker.
Ooh.
See, y'all get stuck on Madam C.J. Walker because she's taught in the classrooms, and I'm not taking anything away from her. But if you look at San Francisco and the Athenaeum and look up the meaning of Athenaeum.
Well, see, they don't want to talk about that because the Wild Wild West was not won by the gun; it was won by the brothel. And the
Say that.
difference, the Wild Wild West was not won by the gun; it was won by the brothel. The difference between a mining camp and a mining town was the presence of women.
And the thing about it is, y'all do realize that a lot of our early legislation, guess who was influencing that? The brothel owners. And for those
They
of
were the
y'all,
mayors.
those of y'all that still want to back Trump, his great granddaddy, who, remember when Trump criticized Hillary Clinton for having pneumonia? His great granddaddy died of pneumonia. And it was his
Dude,
great grandmama, while they changed the name from Mary Trump and Sons. It was the grandmama that was like, let's stop just buying up land and let's make some money off of it, because they had brothels that, just like the Trump casinos, were losing money. How do you
oh,
lose money on a brothel during the gold rush when you had a bunch of men leaving their sexual cohorts behind and a bunch of women who were leaving their sexual cohorts behind?
because they didn't want women, they wanted men.
And nobody was supplying them that liberal list, except for, oh, that's right, people who look like us.
Oh, again, and they didn't want women, they wanted men.
Yep, I'm just.
Hey, we could tell the truth the whole way, because that's true. As soon as you start getting past the Mississippi, and you get all those quote unquote cowboys, they start doing some things that are,
Well,
as they say, natural to England. Anyway,
here's the thing.
anyway,
Here's the thing. We were the original cowboys, because
Caballeros.
they decided to take the cow part, the cabro, because of, when you translate it, it's of darker tone, and boy, because that's what they called all of us. Then
Right.
all of a sudden, see, a lot of people try to take the buck breaking as, oh, they're trying to bring homosexuality into the black. No, because you cannot take a straight man and put him in front of enough men that will make him do it. No, these slave masters
Teach.
needed an excuse.
Teach.
They needed an excuse to fulfill their sexual fantasies, just like Thomas Jefferson needed an excuse to fulfill his pedophilia. Let's call a spade a spade.
Teach. You ain't lying. Because Cabarello culture is very affectionate, but it's affectionate in the original sense, not in the sexual sense. So you got all these pictures from the 1850s and 1860s, 1870s, 1880s with these cats that were chilling. But if you tried to run up on them posses, you got done in wrong. And when they came to town, all the brothel girls, it would be the same women. They knew what they were dealing with because they were doing their best to avoid dis-ease. And if you look at it, again, we got the records for this. A number of us who dealt with that were trying to avoid the European Americans because when the European Americans could not access women or men, they accessed animals.
And I told y'all that before.
It's all true. There's no, they keep thinking that we're lying when we tell the truth to them. Pecos Bill, that legend, don't get me started. Johnny Appleseed, that legend, walking around barefooted all the time with a pot on his head, whatever, dude. He was signaling.
Here's the thing. There's a reason why a grown man is still infantilized and glorified to this day by being called Billy the Kid, and his name wasn't even Billy, and he wasn't a kid.
I'm gonna let that be.
But brother, I'm about to spotlight you again because I would love, if you're okay with it, for you to be able to talk to everyone regarding how to be better in 2023. Is that okay?
Oh, that's quite all right.
All right.
First and foremost, you have to begin making an investment into the knowledge of self. Start with a basic list of books. Lerone Bennett's Before the Mayflower. Start there. From there, you're going to progress to The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. If you are blessed to get Land and Power by T. Thomas Fortune, who is my favorite, and I'm missing his title totally, Land, People, and Power. But T. Thomas Fortune, Timothy Thomas Fortune, who is my favorite journalist, he ghost wrote Up from Slavery, which is attributed to Booker T. Washington, along with a number of his speeches, and he was the #1 journalist before Ida B. Wells in the Black community. Get Black Reconstruction by W.B. Du Bois. It's a bigger book, and it's like one of his better books, even though it's in the 1930s. I like Souls of Black Folk, but Black Reconstruction gives you a framework of how the modern world among us was crafted. If you could find anything by A. Philip Randolph, and it's going to be about him because he didn't do a lot of writing, because as a socialist or a communist, his critique of Karl Marx is way more on point than anything that a European American is going to say or do to you, because a European American is critiquing the capitalistic system from within the empire, not as the actual capital or currency of the empire. I'm going to ask that you choose to adopt those spiritual systems that are indigenous to you. So the Ifa and the Hoodoo, rather than the Christianity that was given to us by the colonists. If you can get to the Nation of Islam or Moorish Science Temple or Father Divine and those particular systems, if you want to go into the Masonic, then hit the Prince Hall. The whole point is for you to access metaphysics. because then you're going to learn that you are the embodiment of the divine idea. When it comes down to moving forward, we can use the Nguzu Saba, or the basis of Kwanzaa, Kwaida, that was given to us by Maulana Karinga. He has lots of thick books where he talks about the indigenous systems from Akibulan, or Africa, that he utilized in order to craft the Kwaida or the Nguzu Saba. Why do I want you to do this? Because then you will be operating in reality and not in the false colonialism that was given to us, because they tried to take what they got from Europe and give it to us like it was civilization, when we are the fathers and mothers of civilization. So I want you to work from a blueprint that is in alignment with who and what you are. The definition of manhood, the definition of womanhood, the definition of childhood, and how we can go through the various levels to develop into our divine self, so we aren't fooled by the propaganda that is coming from Edward Benet. If you haven't seen the documentary Century of Self and its 4 parts, please get it, because Edward Bernays, Bernays, who was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, is the father of advertising in the United States of America. He did a book called Propaganda. So I want you to be able to emancipate yourself from mental slavery. If you're indigenous, then you want to decolonize. If you're European American, you got to deconstruct. But you notice that what science that they use is not what we use. We use that which is going to empower us to push back against this Babylon. There's a reason why Rastafari was crafted specifically to help us unlock our minds. There's a reason why the Nation of Islam was crafted to specifically unlock our minds. There's a reason why the 5% was crafted specifically to help us unlock our minds. We have various personalities. There are like 16 of them with 32 affects. Please begin learning who and what you are, and then not being fooled by the media or by those who want to be Cliff Huxtables, rather than who and what we truly are. If you are of dark skin, did you know that you can levitate? If you're my particular complexion, because you can go from dark to medium to white, but you can't go from white to medium to dark, that we can do like 1,000 miles at a time. If you look at the Kum in Southern Africa, Monomotapa or Zania, they are the originators of the marathon. They would chase the gazelles and figure out which way they went, even when they could not see them, because they would tune in. Those are skill sets from the hunter-gatherer societies that we have access to right here in 2023. But as long as you are imbibing, like the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey said, this civilization, then you're going to get the results that come from this civilization, which is all based on destruction. That's why they're teaching their children right now Oppenheimer. Why are you going to teach children how to create an atomic bomb when we need the creation of that which is going to return the earth to its natural state? Do you hear what I'm saying? Please don't follow this evil society. Choose to follow the fathers and mothers of civilization. Check out Tadia, Dr. Yosef Ben Yakana, Dr. John Hendrik Clark. They have entitled Amos Wilson, Ivan Van Sertima. We have libraries of persons that you need to start paying attention to, and leave this European American standard alone.
And with that, those that have been long-standing watchers, because this podcast goes hand in hand with my blog, where once a month I put out resources for people to see. So I'm going to say in front of everybody, can I include, can I reach out to you and include references that you use and resources that you use on that list?
Oh, all day. Let me see the list and what I have to add on. I will add on. Was Winthrop D. Jordan, The White Man's Burden, The Historical Origins of Racism in the United States of America, where he goes over what was going on in their minds before they came over here. I mean,
Oh,
dude,
hold on, brother. This see it's comments like this. This is why I keep moving forward. I don't care if it's 2 viewers or 200. Look at this comment. Y'all are literally answering the quest I made this moon cycle. I'm not even kidding.
as you should. You're welcome.
And the thing about it is, this is why I bring people on. This is why I do what I do. And a lot of people go, well, Taz, sometimes it's only 2 people who watch, but it's 2 people who grew.
Teach.
If you're looking at having to have 1 million people watch what you're doing, let me explain something to you. Okay.
Go ahead.
I am a fervent student of Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam. 110. See, people make jokes because I wear wigs. Do y'all know why I cover my hair? Did y'all ever wonder why I cover my hair? Do y'all ever wonder why I don't show my hair
Teach.
to the public? Like,
Teach.
did it ever get into y'all why I cover my hair? I'm not ashamed of my hair. I just believe that there are certain parts of me that should not make me vulnerable to other people, that should not be shared to the masses.
Okay, so
And
that's
I
hoodoo. That's
know you,
obia
brother. I know you understand
culture.
where I'm coming from as to why I cover certain things. Because I have people coming like, "Oh, you always in a t-shirt." No man told me to do this. My
Mm,
daddy, I cover certain things and I share certain things
mm.
because it's what's been put on my heart. And I know that as a woman, certain people, and I know you understand this, brother, certain people will only take me seriously when they see certain things of me. Because I could show that I'm a baddie. But if I'm showing I'm a baddie, are you really going to take my intellect into consideration?
Or I don't know if you're a femme fatale. I don't know if you're Nzinga trying to come and do something to me. They don't understand. That's how the chief of the Bakongo got taken down when his participation in the slave trade. They're not knowing. They're not understanding.
And
I
my
mean,
thing is, y'all have gotten a glimpse. Y'all have gotten a glimpse with this new iteration. And because the blurred in me is going to bring it up. When y'all see the new Black Panther, the new Wakanda, you get a glimpse. But those of us that fervently practice comedicism,
uh-oh.
you're only going to see certain parts of us. And we take pride because if you don't know, now you know I'm a griot of my family.
There you go. Okay, yeah, you West African on that front. You West African on that front.
I'm a
You West
griot.
African. Right.
So my whole purpose is to teach, educate, and to gather the history.
Right. And I don't think they'd recognize that the public display is not what happens behind closed doors. Because with Griros, when they start rubbing different parts of themselves and stories start flowing out and information start flowing out, that's at a different level. And you could be in the same room, but if they start operating at that particular level, you won't hear what the other people who are in tune will hear. But they're not trying to hear that kind of science or understand that kind of science. That's why there's levels. Literally, there are levels.
That's why I tell people I have no problem swimming with sharks, but I'll never swim with the orca.
Ooh, they're not understanding that. I see. I got Samoan family. They're not understanding that.
So you get what I'm
Correct. They're not
saying.
understanding. You can move a shark. You just turn a shark upside down and that shark goes to sleep. But an orca, where I come from in Alaska, raven is who you're scared of. Not a crow, raven. I grew up with stories of Matthew Henson, and from the vantage point of the elders that were telling us, "Oh yeah, we saw them when they were coming." What do you mean you saw them when they were coming? And when the Europeans showed up, they were like, "You didn't see Raven following you?" I grew up with the idea of remote viewing. No spook, pure science. Okay? And they told us how they did what they did. Can I reveal that right now? No, you got to be initiated. No different than hoodoo, no different than Ifa. And if you are not of a particular DNA or on particular land, you do not get access to certain powers.
Yeah,
And that's
for
why
those of
they
y'all that think that you can go to Barnes and Noble and get a book on Santeria,
you can go on with yourself. You will end up dying. You will commit suicide from going insane. Do not do that. This is not an intellectual
because here's
game.
the thing: when you're calling upon ancestors, do y'all realize whose ancestors you're calling upon?
Us.
You cannot call upon those that you murdered
Correct.
and expect them to help you.
Correct.
Because as I keep telling y'all, when I tell y'all, see, your ancestors that were slave masters, see, they were a part of the First Wives Club, the First Husband Club. And from the movie First Wives Club, what was that song that came out? You don't own me.
Ooh. So they don't seem to understand. How do you have Benjamin Banneker able to operate outside of their legal system? How do you have Prince Hall able to operate outside of their legal system? Because George Washington had to bow down to both of them.
First of all, let's break it down. Y'all do realize that even during the times of chattel slavery, the Quakers were like, you know what, let's let the slaves have access to our judicial system. And you want to know why they shut down that access to the judicial system and they try to fight us so hard in the judicial system now? Is that we were winning. Even when California, yes, the entire state of California, actually before it was a state, when it was just a territory where parts of it were still belonging to Mexico, they put a ban on Black people being able to testify against white people because they knew that we were bringing the truth and the facts. And before we had the term receipts, we already brought them in. And if you look up Madame Perlman, you know, the mother of California, who is a Black woman, she utilized the court system so many times that even before we got a Claudette Colvin, even before we got a Rosa Parks, she was like, streetcars are going to allow Black folks onto there. And it was also Madame Perlman that funded John Brown, you know, Mr. Harper's Ferry Revolt himself. Did y'all forget that he was not a good businessman and kept running into bankruptcy? And how did y'all think that he got from coast to coast? It was a Black woman. That's why in her life they tried to act as if she was just a mammy because she withheld the knowledge of her wealth and kept working as a domestic. That's why even to this day a Black person can win the lotto for millions and trillions of dollars and you'll never know.
They're not trying to hear that. They're not trying to hear that because that would mean that they'd have to reevaluate everything that they're doing and their interactions with Black, brown, indigenous persons of color because they weren't the only ones. They weren't. Okay. They weren't the only ones because this was all Mexico and the Mexicana, especially here in the Pacific Northwest. This was, and they don't recognize that there were more than one Trail of Tears. It
And
blew
you
my
need to realize that a lot of Mexico gave a lot of land to Black, brown, indigenous individuals.
oh it okay when Andrew Jackson is president of the seventh president of the United States of America between 1828 and 1836. There was about three Trails of Tears. One of them flew through Louisiana. And if you go to the Fifth Ward, it is Choctaw because there was a covenant between Black people and the indigenous for them to pass for Black, which is why Howlin' Wolf is 100% Choctaw and contributes to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Don't fight me. You can go to Rumble on PBS and watch the documentary that gives him credit.
And on top of that, Mexico took a lot of Wampanoag people.
Us, yes, us, left and right. That's
And a
that's
lot of
they're
Kanaka.
cousins.
And a lot of the Kanaka. But
Yes.
shoot, see, this is what happens. So let me ask you, my great brother, are you willing to come back next week and we continue this conversation if you have time?
Okay, let me look into my mental Rolodex just to see. Okay, so we've got the Black Cultural Festival coming up. And so next week is what date? Just give me the date that it is, because it's on the 19th that the Black Cultural Festival is.
Hold on,
Right before the anniversary of us coming to North America under European American guide, because according to Ivan Van Sertima, we were already here.
yeah, hold on. Let me pull up the calendar. Okay, it'll be the 13th.
Oh yes, I can do that.
Okay, so y'all, because I realize sometimes I we get into conversations and I keep y'all here for way too long. But y'all try to rock with me as long as you can. So we will continue this conversation next week. Thank you, my brother, for coming through. I so appreciate you.
I
I
appreciate you. The gratitude is mutual.
so like I
Beyond, black woman.
yes. So we will get with each other throughout the week. Because actually it's in 2 weeks that I put out the next segment of resources that people
You
can
good?
go to. So I will send you the current link that links back to the other links. And
We'll have fun.
you know what? The boomer had to make an appearance, of
Of
course.
course. Of course. Come on now. Hold on. Where I come from, we say they domesticated us.
Well, he yeah, y'all can see him, right?
Yeah,
He
yeah, yeah, yes, we can. I'm used to there being 16, 18, 20 dogs in the yard.
well, everybody took their dogs back this week.
Where I come from, we have the Iditarod.
Well, everybody feels like eventually I'm just gonna have a compound, which is gonna
True.
be a bunch of marginalized people and animals, which I believe that's gonna happen. That is my goal. But
Oh, we're building those. Those are called sanctuaries. We're building those. We're
yeah,
looking at 20. We're looking at 20-acre plots. We just need to have access to water and a railroad. And we want. We'll talk about that later, because we got an entire plan that's written out for 5 years with phases.
exactly. So as always, thank you all for joining me here. Thank you, my brother, for joining. And as I always say, each one reach one, each one teach one.
Uh
I'll see
oh.
you later.
Teach.